What's going on, YouTube? Aaron Trevino here, back on our Texas real estate and construction channel, and we have someone visiting us for the second time. We have Chris Gormley from Charlotte, North Carolina. How you doing today, Chris?
Good, Aaron. Thanks for having me back on, bud. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. There's certain episodes. I guess I could probably name a few, but that were special last year, and I really thought that ours was. There was a heck of a lot, heck of a lot of value, great conversation, and had to have you back on the show. So honored to have you come on.
Absolutely, man. Hey, I'm honored as well, dude. It's always a privilege. And like you had said, the first conversation we had was awesome. So I'm looking forward to circling back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy. I didn't realize how long it had really been since we had spoken, but I've been keeping up with you a little bit on Instagram, and I thought, dang, we need to have Chris back on because he's doing some pretty neat stuff that I want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's dive into it. I'm happy to share. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
Absolutely, Chris. So, for those of us who aren't familiar with you, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. So obviously, name's Chris. I'm a owner and operator of a real estate investment company called Network Ventures that I started 2 years ago. And prior to that, I was in medical sales and was able to use COVID as a way to just springboard into the company. I was living in Seattle when we did our first episode, and I'm now in Charlotte, North Carolina. So clear across the country, but I grew up in Michigan, so it feels good to be back on this side of the country, and I'm a lot closer to my projects. I have a daughter who's 5 years old, and I'm an adrenaline junkie. So I've got a really fast car. I've got a sports bike. Love going to the gym. I'm usually there six days a week, give or take a day. And love to travel. I'm big on family. I'm big on connections. Hence why my company is called Network Ventures. So just big on networking and connecting with people. So
I love it. I think that's great. And I'm curious a bit about your background as well, Chris. I know we talked a bit about it on the first show, but, maybe, growing up in Michigan and kind of in your childhood, did you see yourself working in the real estate business?
you know, I subconsciously, yeah, I think so. Because the reason I say that, I remember being in high school, and I remember specifically, actually, like one in particular spot. There was a commercial building going up, and I remember driving to class with one of my buddies, and he was trying to figure out, we were trying to figure out like what stores were going to go in there in this like commercial retail building. And I was just thinking, like, who the hell is building this thing? Like, who's the person or the company behind this? And I was just always curious, like, who built these big buildings? So I didn't know back then I'd get into real estate, but I think subconsciously I've always wanted to get into it. I've always just been really attracted to like architecture, and, being 2 hours from Chicago, going into the city, seeing these massive buildings, the Trump Tower and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, no, I didn't know, it wasn't like right in front of my face kind of thing, but I think it was deep down. I was really attracted to it.
Yeah, that's pretty neat how you mentioned that was subconscious almost, right? Like you knew what you saw and you're like, man, how are they building that? God knows. And then, kind of fast forward to where you are today. It's like, hey, here you are.
Right. Yeah. And throughout my 20s, I really started to get this idea. Like, I was working in medical device sales. I didn't really want to climb the corporate ladder and become a manager. And I just, I don't know. I'd had buddies in SoCal that were doing really good in real estate. Actually, one of my neighbors, when I lived down in Newport Beach, he ran a Newport Beach Prudential branch. And he would always tell me, he's like, dude, just sell a couple houses, you make some, good money. And it just kind of started to get going for me. Like, my wheels really started to turn, but I didn't really take action on it until like my late 20s, when I started going out and getting my license and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And I'm curious about kind of that transition as well. I know that you mentioned you were in medical sales, you were probably kind of, really honing your craft there and kind of, working on that sort of salesmanship aspect as well. Why not climb the corporate ladder? What was it, about that environment that you didn't, that you wanted to go in a different direction?
Yeah, great question. Dude, I always like, I feel like I always just kind of grew up thinking a little different. I never really liked fitting in. I never really liked thinking inside the box. And I was always just attracted to really like eclectic people that were always very out there. And I don't know, I just didn't want to fall into line. And I just, quite frankly, didn't really want to work with anybody or work for anybody. And so as I started to progress, and 25 was really a pivotal point in my career, where I moved from, Newport Beach, where I was going out all the time, tons of friends. And then I moved over to Palm Springs, which was like a heavy, heavy retirement community. And I lived by myself. And I had a lot of just living alone. I had a lot of internal reflection, and it just kind of confirmed. I'm like, man, I got to do something. Like, and I didn't quite know what it was. I didn't know if I'd be a full blown entrepreneur or not, but I just wanted to do something different. I didn't just want to be 60 years old and retiring with a company that had a good pension or 401k. You know what I mean? I just knew there was more to it because I saw all these people online and, Grant Cardone and even celebrities, as cheesy as it sounds. I didn't want to be like Hollywood, but like these people live these like really unique lives. And I'm like, man, I want to do something like that. I'm meant to do something like that. It's almost kind of the Kanye model, if you will, but he takes it to a whole nother level. So
Yeah. What's that Kanye model?
oh, dude, just that you can do anything that you believe you can do, and that, society is meant to just dumb you down. You're supposed to go to college. You're supposed to get a job. You're supposed to, meet your person, get married. Like there's supposed to be like this order, this like political correctness to life. And, the things he does and says, not everybody agrees with, but you can't deny the guy's confidence and the fact that he speaks his mind. And it's why he is where he is. It's why he's a billionaire. So, hate him or
Yeah.
love him, he does what he wants to do. So.
Absolutely. And, without me harping on Kanye too much, one thing, did you see his documentary? I think it came out earlier this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, it was an incredible documentary. And I think one of the things there that one of his friends was commending him on was just this guy's bold. He doesn't care. He'll turn on a dime and he doesn't care if, he loses it all. It's just kind of the game he plays.
That's it, man. That's it. Just speak your truth. And, it's like the whole riding the fence mindset. Once you get off that fence and you kind of, and I don't mean politically right or left, but once you just get off the fence and start speaking your mind and what you believe in and what you stand up for, sure, you might have people that oppose that, but you're going to have more people that stand with you as well. And that's why, like, even starting this company, I don't shy away from posting certain things. I curse quite a bit. I'm an edgy kind of guy, and it's just how I live my life, but I mean well. I have good intention. I have a huge heart. I'm a great dad. And so I just trust that if somebody doesn't see that within me, we're probably just not aligned. But, you can be a bold person without being a bad person.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of people really connect with that. I know I do, right? I like a bit of your stuff on Instagram.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I see you on there. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm curious as well, one thing I thought that you said was interesting was you mentioned the age of 25. The age of 25, something came into your head and said, hey, I need to do something, right? Do you think it was, kind of that prefrontal cortex fully forming in your brain, or, what was it at age 25? What was special about that year?
Yeah, man. Another good question. I feel like 25 is well, I think everybody has different timelines, but for me personally, 25 was that point where I was 4 or 5 years into my career. I'd done a bunch of partying and all that kind of stuff. It was just kind of getting old. And I wasn't married or anything like that. And I just knew there was like a kind of a next step where I was like, okay, I don't want to be out partying all the time and doing the same old crap until I'm 30, 35, whatever plus years old. It just, yeah, I mean, I really think like my awareness just started to grow. And a big thing for me that happened at 25, I should probably mention this. I was almost killed in a motorcycle accident. And so an SUV pulled out in front of me. I was going probably 85 miles an hour. By the time I hit the SUV, it probably wasn't much slower than that, but definitely an accident that I should have been killed in. No doubt about it. I had a carbon fiber helmet, split down the front, shattered my pelvis, broke my both wrists, left elbow, all in the radius. I mean, I've got plate screws, 9+ surgeries, had to learn how to walk again. And going through an experience like that, especially at 25, it just made me realize how short life is. I mean, truly, and how when they say like, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow, well, you could get hit by an SUV tomorrow, and that's exactly what happened to me. So after I got back from that, I had a lot of people telling me that like they were like, you were just different, like you changed, and that's going to do something to you. So I think getting into that accident, along with just where I was at in life and my career, it was like this perfect synergy of just like God or the universe telling me like, hey, it's time to really start thinking bigger, and time to start really thinking outside the box and just going after more than just waking up every day, going to your job.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I know we talked about that on the first show, but it really is remarkable. And, it speaks to your character as well, right? Because someone could have easily had all those injuries and, had an awful accident like that and just kind of rolled over and taken it and said, hey, this is the approach I have to life. There's not much else. Whereas for you, you went in the complete opposite direction.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I was, I had I'd say the first week I was sitting there and I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. And I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. Cause I had a bunch of other stuff like my abdominal muscles tore. I had to have those reattached. I had I was, essentially peeing out of a bag through a tube. And after that first week, I was like, all right, this is stupid. Like, this is, I'm going to make a recovery. I'm going to get back. And that's what I did. I got back. I got into the best shape of my life. And then I had my daughter 2 years later. And then a year after that, I snapped my Achilles in half and it was like kind of all over again. So rebuild my body all over again. And it's like, I look back and I'm like, God, I love what I went through. I really do. Because again, I'm getting close to being back into the best shape of my life. I'm probably about 5 or 6 months away from it. And it's just crazy what the mind and the body can do. It really is, so.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, I look at your Instagram sometimes and I see the words do hard shit. What does do hard shit mean to you?
Oh man. Dude, it just essentially like put yourself in the most productive, uncomfortable conversation or uncomfortable situations that you can, obviously there's a way to be living life in a hard way where you're broke, you have toxic relationships, you're always in trouble. But I mean, like choose your hard, you know what I'm saying? Do the hard shit. Like I would rather have my body be sore because I'm in the gym, breaking down my muscle versus having lower back issues because I'm fat and overweight. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather have, hard conversations and relationships because I'm telling the truth and I'm trying to have forward progressive relationships versus being scared to tell the truth. And then I have these fake / toxic relationships. So it's like, no matter what you do, it's going to be hard no matter what. I mean, regardless, your career is going to be hard, but like, would you rather have it be hard because you're reactive and you're not getting that promotion you want, or you're not acting on that side hustle you want to take? Or would you rather have it be hard because you are doing it and it's fucking hard, right? Like, it's just hard. So it's like, be on the offense with your hard versus being reactive because you're not going to escape the hard no matter what.
Absolutely. And it's very easy to kind of, like we talked about, kind of roll over and go in the opposite direction, right? You leave all these conveniences, right? You have the technology, you have the Uber Eats, you have the Netflix, you have the whatever else people do, right? It's very easy to kind of have that hyper convenience and not want to go out and do those hard things.
Oh, dude, I know. It's everywhere. It's everywhere we go. Subscription based everything. It's so funny because I'm always like, my daughter's 5 now, and I'm like, all right, honey, now I'll get you a snack. I'm gonna pop this into the microwave, and I was like, it'll be done in a couple minutes. She's like, couple minutes? That's a long time. And I was like, oh, I was like, babe, you have no idea.
You
Just wait. Yeah, just wait. Because patience. Yeah, it's hilarious.
That's funny. No, it's also funny as well. I guess kind of off that, I thought of you last week as well. If you don't mind, how old are you?
33.
33. It's funny. Do you know Alexander Cortez on Instagram? He's kind of a fitness guy.
Dude, I know. Yeah, I know that name. I don't know if I follow him, but I know that name, Alexander Cortez. Is he like a celebrity fitness guy?
Kind of, yeah. Like I think he would train celebrities for movies and stuff, has long hair.
Yes.
They kind of call him Chad Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
it's funny. He had a quote, and it's funny we're talking now. He had a quote that said, "Men that turn 30 and let themselves go physically, you're the reason why society is going to hell. At the age where you should be a leader to those around you, you're fat with no discipline."
I
And
love it.
and
Boom.
I know that that may sound a little bit rough for the crowd out there, but it made me think as well. When I, at least, when I was working out in my early 20s, older people would kind of poke at me and say, hey, you just wait till you're in your early 30s or early 40s. So I really commend people who are really taking care of themselves in any time of life.
Yeah, I agree. It's never too late to get started. It's really not. I mean, you see guys in their 50s breaking Olympic world records with weightlifting, you know, like you might not be as fast, you will get slower, but like I was listening to a podcast the other day and this guy was talking about, he's like, yeah, you will get slower when you get older, but you can still get stronger. And being strong there's a lot of benefit to that. I mean, when I look at all the hardware I have in my body, you know, I mean, I'm still, you know, repping 275, 315 on squat with all this hardware. And I truly believe that my issues would be a lot worse. My pain would be a lot worse if I wasn't under that bar every single day, just putting in the work, you know?
Wow, that's it.
Oh,
That's remarkable. In a way, it's kind of counterintuitive because if anything, you wouldn't want all that pressure on those, on those parts.
right, right. Well, we'll see. I mean, I might be a little sore when I'm older, but you know, we'll see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That mind body connection is so neat. And I'm curious as well, really, I guess kind of the topic today is, it almost sounds too good to be true, right? How are you able to go from a small flip to leaving your job and then developing a $20 million project? How does that happen?
Yeah, man. Sometimes I still ask myself the same damn question. You know, I will say, speaking to like a mindset, you really have to believe in yourself. You really have to sell your story and sell your dream. And it really shouldn't be that hard to do if you believe in yourself and you believe in what you want to do. You know, I got introduced to a pretty high net worth individual, and some might call that luck. You know, I call it universal alignment, because if I wasn't ready for that, I don't think it would have happened. But we started flipping. Let's see, he bought me like 4 or 5 houses. We flipped those. I was in the process of flipping those, and I came across this off market property that it was right on campus of where I'm doing my project. And there was other people looking at the deal. I saw the writing on the wall. I saw the opportunity, and I just went to my guy and I pitched it to him. I just said, hey, look, you know, this is the bigger thing that we were talking about doing. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to be ultimately become the best at. And I'm going to put the right people in place to get this done. And I think the returns are going to be phenomenal. So we went through, of course, you run all the numbers, you do all the work and everything like that. But I mean, within a week's time, I talked to him, the financial advisor, I pitched everybody on it, and we were off to the races. And so, you know, and I know this because I've talked to him about it, but you have to just believe in yourself, and you have to get other people to believe in you, because learning to be a developer, that's something you can go learn. You know, you can bring in the right people, and I'm surrounded by the right, architects, attorneys. I've brought on an owner's rep who's then turned into a mentor, who's now a partner of mine. You can bring in the right people, but you have to have the right mindset going into it. And was I scared shitless? Absolutely. I was scared, but did I feel like I was drinking from a fire hose? Yes, I still feel that way. I still have a lot to learn, but what's worse is me looking at this opportunity and saying, nah, not yet. I don't know if I'll be ready. Well, I told myself, I'm like, dude, you're never going to be ready until you actually just do it. You know what I mean? So that was it. I mean, I really, truly believe a lot of it was just believing in myself and putting myself around the right people.
Absolutely. And I mean, that really, is a big reflection on that sort of mindset that you're talking about, because it really sounds crazy, right? Someone who's, flipping a small home, maybe valued at, a couple $100,000, right? You're kind of, you have your budget and that's about it. Whereas with development, it's an entirely different animal, and you're having all these different processes moving at once. I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, again, I think going back to being surrounded by the right people, I have a buddy in SoCal who's my accountant, and he works for one of the largest real estate industrial firms in the world, and he's used to big deals. And he's the one that really came to me and said, hey, look, I'm going to help you with this. This is no flip. Like, you got to have your processes down. You got to have financial statements in order. These guys want to know like what their IRR is, what's best worst case scenario, all these different things. The architect and the engineers were the ones helping design the building. I was just bringing my vision. So initially we were going to do 8 to 10 townhomes. And I looked at it, and I mean, you don't have to be a genius to know this, but I looked at it and I'm like, I told my team on the calls, I was like, guys, I don't think this is the highest and best use of this property. Like the city's allowing for more density. Like, let's really push this project. So we went from 8 to 10 townhomes to doing 27 luxury condos with 3 retail spaces on the bottom. And, being around those architects and engineers that could, pencil it all out for me and say, hey, this makes sense. Then I'm working with, my buddy Josh on the accounting side. Then I'm working with legal. I'm working with the city to go through and get variances amended that I needed to. So like you said, there's a lot of moving parts, but you just kind of look at one of them at a time and you focus on one of them at a time, but you just all kind of see like how they play synergistically, so do we need to go in front of the board before we do this? And do we need to do this? And before we do, you know what I mean? It's not easy. Hence why I'm probably, all over the place explaining it. But you just kind of get through it. And then obviously bringing on my owner's rep who had a construction background, who's done some development. That was a game changer as well. I brought him in probably 6 to 8 months in, and he's just been immensely helpful with the construction side of things.
Absolutely. And I know you probably alluded to this earlier, kind of talking about, your systems and your team and different things like that. But, when you're developing, what do you think are what's one of the most important things to consider when you're doing this sort of development project?
You mean kind of prior, like getting into it, like someone listening who wants to be a developer?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I think the team component's so important. I'll give you an example. I'm looking at developments down here in Charlotte, and I'm kind of starting all over again. So I'm reaching out to civil engineers, architects, brokers. I'm trying to find all the right people, and you have to talk to multiple people. You can't just talk to one engineer and just assume you're going to work with that engineer. So I'm really, really big on just referrals. So for example, if I talk to a broker who I can tell is just a big hitter in the area, their name's on a lot of stuff, they're doing a lot of deals, naturally coming in with my financial backing, it kind of bumps me up to not the very front of the line, but it puts me in a good competitive position. I can then go to that broker and say, hey, what kind of engineers have you worked with? What kind of, architects have you worked with? And so really starting to build out your team, that's probably, in my opinion, the most important thing, because if you have a strong financial team and then you have a strong construction company and you have a strong, call it soft cost team, so engineers and marketing and all that, I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, the developer's job is to put the right people in the right seats and then bring your vision and let them put it to life. So my hat goes off to the team every single time. I mean, every single time.
Absolutely. Well said. And, would you also describe the services that you offer, like the sort of development services? Because it sounds like, at first you wanted it to be townhomes, and then you realized and you told your team, hey, highest and best use, let's go in another direction. Could you kind of describe maybe the sort of projects you're looking to do?
Yeah, for sure. So I think anything residential related, so condos, townhomes, mixed use, so with the retail, even single family unattached, so doing a full blown neighborhood, if you will, townhomes as well. And then also just given where we're at with the market, I want to be opportunistic about what we're looking at. So like, I know we're looking at some flex space as well, because once you kind of get into this realm and you kind of start understanding who the tenants would be, what you could get price per square foot, what you could build price per square foot, you can kind of start to break into other asset classes, self-storage, especially if they're pretty simply modeled. I wouldn't probably go and jump into like medical offices or something. That's kind of a whole, you know what I mean? Different can of worms. But yeah, I would say residential, and then some storage, kind of flex space, industrial, if you will.
Okay. And could you kind of expand on flex space? It's more of just, it's a space to where it could be either or different types of real estate, or?
Yeah. So flex space, there's a couple different. So imagine you have like a large warehouse, and even within that warehouse, you can have fenced off areas or taped off areas where, tradesmen, contractors, et cetera, they can rent these little spaces for all their tools or whatnot. Maybe they're on one side of the city and they're doing projects all the way on the other side of a city. Well, they can have a small little flex space closer to their project, so they don't have to constantly run back and forth. You could also do a flex space where it's, instead of one large warehouse, it's like essentially a large warehouse, but then it's subdivided. So you have like little strips of, almost kind of call it, like store frontage with warehouse in the back.
Mm.
So, you have you have a tile company, right? You could have all your tile in the front where your customers could come look at it, but then you have your warehouse in the back. So that's kind of like flex space, where you're basically just taking a large industrial building, breaking it up how you want to break it up. You could have one bathroom per unit. You could have one bathroom per building, and you're just allowing people to rent that space. So it's a really cool model. And it's what I think a lot of people are going to be wanting to get into, just with the economy starting to slow down. Maybe a lot of these companies that have, 5, 10, 15, 20 plus thousand square foot buildings, maybe they need to downsize. They don't need a full building anymore. They can come in and rent part of this flex space and kind of go about their business that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned that is that, a friend of mine, I visited here, him in a part of Houston, and I went to one of those flex space buildings. I'd never really seen one before, but we're kind of in a unique time where, at least the past few years, we're almost reevaluating and, repurposing buildings and doing these value adds. It's almost like we're reevaluating the way that we develop. So that's why I think what you're doing is really cool.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. It's yeah, I think it's important to like, be focused on an asset class and be focused on, getting really good at one thing. But you can also sort of, you want to stay competitive. You want to stay ahead of the game within that realm. So, for example, like I own and operate a real estate investment company. I'm not going to go out and start, an e-commerce business right now, but I can become an expert within real estate. Am I focused on multifamily and residential? Yes, I love that. I think there's always going to be a need for that. But if I saw an opportunity in another asset class, are a lot of those skills and a lot of those team members transferable? Absolutely. It's just, you might have to learn some new things, but again, choose your hard, right? So
Yeah, choose your card. Yeah, no, that's and it's interesting that at least right now we're kind of seeing maybe that crowd, they've done flips, they kind of have maybe some local connections, maybe they've done those flips or smaller new builds, and they're really looking to take it to the next level. So, hearing this is pretty neat to hear, because it's, I mean, $20 million that you don't, the average investor doesn't see that every day.
right, right. And once you get into those rooms, man, it's hard to look back. You know what I mean? I'm still doing some flips, but I'm really focused on just trying to do bigger deals at this point.
Absolutely. And, that was interesting. You mentioned getting in the right room, right? So, I think a big, obviously network, you're all about networking and getting your name out there. And I'm curious as well, it can be tough for someone. Maybe they're new, maybe they're new to a city, maybe they just changed jobs, maybe they have some cash, they want to utilize it, or maybe they've kind of realized that maybe their friend group is a little bit different from where they really want to go in life. What would you tell someone who's looking to surround themselves around those good people to get to the next level?
Yeah. So I would say, they say follow the money, right? There's that quote out there, follow the money. Now, in the beginning, I would say follow the money. Like, honestly, you're going to meet good and bad people that don't make money, and you're going to meet good and bad people that make money. But what I've noticed is that typically, if somebody is successful, that bleeds over into other parts of their life. They tend to have good families. They tend to take care of themselves. Maybe not everything. Maybe one of their parts of their life is crap, whatever. Nobody's perfect. But for the most part, in the beginning, follow the money. I talk to a lot of people that say, oh yeah, my friend's uncle is owns a blah 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 company worth 50 million. And I'm like, well, go talk to him. Like, call him, go get in front of him. Just put yourself out there and start having conversations. Be humble. Just say you want to learn. Again, believe in yourself when you're having these conversations. But yeah, like, follow the money. And then from there, once you start getting in these rooms, it starts to open up into other people. You start, getting referrals, introductions, etc. And then they, like they say, there's power and options. So once you know multiple people that are doing something, or multiple people that have money, well, then you can kind of pick and choose based on culture and alignment from a personality standpoint, who you want to work with. I would never work with somebody that like lies and cheats, is an unethical and immoral. But if I align with somebody, if I have two people that both make X amount of money, naturally I can choose to work with somebody who's more aligned with me, or I'm more aligned with them. You know what I'm saying? But in the beginning, you can't just go and pick and choose. Like, you got to do what you got to do. So don't, like I said, don't be immoral or unethical, but follow the money, because these people know other people. Get in these rooms and do what you got to do to get in these rooms.
Yeah, and that's some great insight too. Especially, I mean, what you just did, right? Moving out clear across the country, right? That can be daunting as well. It's one thing to go from a flip to a $20 million deal, but it's another thing to move clear across the country to a brand new place, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure, man. And but just, I would say another thing too, Aaron, like, just make it fun, make it fun. Jump on the call with these people. Don't have any expectations. Give without the expectation of receiving. Some conversations you're going to have are going to be a waste of time, or you're going to feel like they're a waste of time. And other times you're going to have a call where you're like, holy crap, the universe just like put me in front of this person, but it takes numbers. I mean, I didn't just have, I don't have 100% hit ratio for these people. Like if I had a team of 15 people, I didn't have 15 conversations. I probably had like 500 conversations to get those 15 people, so.
Yeah, there's definitely some great insight there. And, that was a great distinction you made between following the money, doing what you have to do while, also holding to your principles and, of course, getting the job done.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
These people at the top, they're, a lot of them want to help, man. And it's interesting. You almost have to like, I don't want to say skip a room, but the person that makes like $1 million a year or $2 million a year, $5 million a year, Grant Cardone actually says this very thing. He's like, be careful of the person that makes like 1 to 5 million because they're cheap asses and they don't want to help anybody. Those are the people that like think they're rich, but they're not rich, but they think they have all the secrets and they don't want to tell people. When I'm dealing with a guy who is worth $100+ million or is a billionaire, which I have both of those people in my room, dude, they want to help people. Like they want to help people. They want people to succeed. They've made their money. They're fun. And maybe not everybody, right? Maybe not everybody, but the people I've been around, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. Like these people truly defy, like that, they go against what people think, all these rich people have money and, they're evil and they're capitalists and they use people. And it's like, no, these people are brilliant for the most part. They're really good at what they do. And they've actually helped a lot of people. They've actually employed a shitload of people, so.
Yeah, no, that's some great insight too. It's, I mean, even, we kind of take it for granted, but even a lot of the beauty that we see in our communities, right? Even, big funding for, I don't know, something like the New York Public Library or all these different things. Those were donations from people who've done well, but are also at the same time, passing it and giving it back as well.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe to kind of pivot a bit as well. I know that, we talked about mindset and, and being driven. And, one thing that people are doing it for, a lot of this whole real estate stuff is for family. So, if you wouldn't mind, could you also talk about maybe how becoming a father would change you as a businessman?
Yeah, for sure. Man, I think about when my daughter gets older and like looks me up on the internet or pokes around as to who I am. She's the ultimate person I want to impress. She's the ultimate person that I want to show off for. And I want her to live a life where the way she feels about herself is the way that I've really grown to feel about myself, confidence, trust her own decisions. And when I'm out conducting business, ultimately everything that I'm doing is putting food on the table for her, is giving her a life, is putting her in private school, whatever that looks like. And I want to be able to say that I just did that through being a good person, working really hard, and just believing in myself, not cutting corners, ripping people off, like none of that kind of stuff. So, my whole life changed when she was about 3 months old. And I'll never forget this. I was at a light in front of a grocery store and I was, her mom and I had just separated. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like kind of in the dating scene a little bit. And, I was going out a little bit, 27, 28, going out from time to time. And I remember I looked back at her and I'm like, man, I am not the guy that I would want her to bring home. Like, you know what I mean? If she brought like, quote unquote, like my personality home, I would not be that impressed at all. And that was a really humility driven thing. And that was like, I really had to it was a gut punch, And so ever since that day, I'm like, man, I want to be the absolute best person I can be for her. And by going into business, being that same way with other people, it's not only just streamlines who I am as a person, so I don't have to live this double life, but it also does reassure me that, hey, when she gets older and she wants to ask me stories about business, or she takes over the company, or she's in meetings with me, or she's talking to my colleagues, she's going to ask like, hey, what's my dad like? What's it like to do a deal with my dad? And I want her to be able to say like, oh, cool. Like, so he's the same way in a business meeting as he is with me as a father,
Yeah.
that's what drives me, man. And it's like, dude, we don't have to wear these hats, like there obviously is some political correctness. Like, there's going to be things that you want to keep behind closed doors or keep, private in your life. And that's fine. But like, dude, for the most part, I'm an open book, I'm pretty transparent. Like the way that I treat one person's how I'm going to treat everybody. Um, it's just easier that way, man. I don't really have to stress about, people knowing me for different versions of me. So, and
Yeah.
it's a great feeling.
I'm sure it is a great feeling. I love that too, and I know that people appreciate that sort of congruence, right? Because someone's question would be, "Oh, I wonder how he is behind closed doors," but what you just said, it's like that congruency, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, hey, the same damn person.
Same damn person. That's right,
Yeah.
Chris. Well, is there anything you haven't said thus far you'd really just like to hit home for us?
Man, I would just say, growing up throughout like high school and college, I was a I was always that kid that was like confident, but I had these like hidden insecurities. And I never believed in myself then the way that I do now. And I look back and I ask myself like how I've gotten to this point of really just believing in myself. And dude, it's really just through like acting on what you should act on. Like if you want to go out and like start this side hustle, or you shouldn't be in this relationship you're in, or you need to lose that weight. Like it's so important to listen to your instincts and hold true to your commitment, because when you identify and align with who you are and you take action on that and you stay committed to that and committed to yourself, it just gives you a level of confidence where you're so unfuckable that it's hard to even explain. Like you truly just start to stop caring what other people think that don't align with you. And it just propels, and it grows and it grows. It's like this snowball effect. And so I would just tell people that, especially with like COVID and the economy with where we're at, the fact that it might get a lot worse. Um, dude, it's just, you've got to just act on who you are. And life is just way too short. Like we live in a tough society right now. I think we have for a while, and I think we're going to continue to, especially with all this whole metaverse and technology and stuff. It's like, so just stick to the old school, man. Like work hard, stay committed to yourself, stay aligned with who you are. And just know that, there might be certain people that'll fall off in your life, but then you're also going to attract people who align with that new 2.0 version of yourself. And yeah, you just, life is just way too short not to act on what you want to do and stay committed to it. It's that simple.
I love it as well. And it was kind of like that gut punch that you said that you had originally, and you kind of eventually, became the person that you really wanted to become. So I think that's so cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it, dude. Good
Yeah.
questions too. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, of course, Chris. Well, maybe we're in the Carolinas, we're down here in Texas, another part of the country. We want to reach out to you. Where can we find you?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're here in Charlotte, reach out. I'd love to just grab a coffee, grab a drink, whatever. Not a big alcohol guy, but coffee or whatever. But you can also reach me on social media. So my personal Instagram is cgorm. So CGORM 12, cgorm 12. And then my company handle is network.ventures. And then networkventuresgroup.com. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions personally, professionally. I'm an open book. Dude, I get pretty deep with people pretty quick about just my life, their life. I mean, it's how we all connect. I'm a 4 quarters over 100 pennies kind of guy. So I'd rather talk to fewer and go deeper than, you know what I mean? Have these surface level relationships with a bunch of people that just are meaningless.
Yeah, completely. Well said on that one. Chris, it's been great, talking a bit about your story, your background. Obviously having the sales experience coming into, this $20 million development deal, and, fitness and mindset. And it's always a fun time with you. So, thank you again for coming on the show.
Hey, Aaron, thank you, man. I appreciate all you guys listening that have. So thank you very much.
Sure thing. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.